my mother and father were married in 1900, I think.
Hmm.
And they met in New Haven because she had come from Ireland in 1898. And she first settled in Providence because she had a half-sister named Kramer in Providence. Well, after a couple of years there, I don't know why, but she moved down to New Haven. And my father lived up around Lafayette Street in New Haven. It's off of Congress Avenue. So they got married, and Johnny was the firstborn. He was born in 1903. And if I remember rightly, they lived, from what I hear, out in Davenport Avenue, which is out toward West Haven, you know.
Right.
And, in fact, right across from where they lived is where my father's father and mother were buried. The Charles and Agatha Gunther.
That's your grandfather.
That's my grandfather, yeah.
And he's in that cemetery near Davenport where those roads come together?
Yeah.
Oh.
In fact, you can see their stone from the street where you can walk along the fence. See it. Someday I'll have to go up and see it again.
Now,
Anyhow, getting back to my family, then they moved over to Nash Street in New Haven. And I don't know who was born there, or whether Carol and Mary were born, I don't know. Because I know your mother went to Edward School, the same one I did, Edward Street School, when she was young. Then they bought the house on Edward Street, 42 Edward Street. No, they lived at 44 Edward Street. That was where I was born. That was 1917. They were renting there, and then they bought 42 Edward Street, little house, about a block and a half from State Street. And that's where I grew up, on Edward Street, until I was 10. Then they moved over to Lawrence Street. That's when my mother and father bought that house on 110 Lawrence Street. And that was in 1927. So I don't ever remember them living in the valley.
When did you move to Orange Terrace?
What's that?
When did you move to 34 Orange Terrace?
Rose and I were married in April of 1950. And in December, I guess, of that same year, we bought the house on Orange Terrace. It was kind of a rundown foreclosure. And we got it for $7,000.
Wow. And
imagine that, $7,000.
And there was a flood living next door, right?
No.
No?
Not Flood. Flood was my mother's maiden name.
Right. Wasn't there a Flood relative that lived next door, just above you?
No, Mrs. You mean up?
Yeah, like, you know, if you're looking at your house, it's to the right. It's in a little brown house, no?
Yeah, there was a woman and her brother. Geez, how do I forget her name? But she was a widow, and she lived next door to me. Then next to her were the...
That the Moluccas?
The who?
The Moluccas, or?
Yeah, I think the Moluccas.
They were up, one up
in
there, yeah. Hmm. Now, do you remember your grandfather?
No, I never saw either of my
They
grandfathers.
both went.
They were all dead by the time I was born.
Yeah.
My grandfather on my mother's side, of course, died in Ireland, so I would never have met him.
Mm.
And my father's father died in 1898 or something like that. So
Mm.
they died young in those days.
Yeah.
They were all in their 40s, I think.
Yeah. Hmm. Now,
So,
how about? I never really heard much about your father. Of course, I knew Catherine,
yeah.
but what can you tell me about your father?
Well, he was born in New Haven on Lafayette Street, up in the hill, that is.
Mm.
And there were about 7 or 8 in the family. He went to school there. Washington School, I remember, was one of the schools he went to.
Mm.
And he never went to college. He went to work for Winchester Repeating Arms as a young man. And he spent about 40 years there.
Wow.
That was his only job, except during the Depression when he was laid off. He'd got jobs with the PWA and the WPA, those government agencies that were formed by Roosevelt during the
Right.
Depression.
Yeah.
And he was a Lutheran originally, and then they changed to Catholic when they married my mother.
So my father did too.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Something.
So he was a quiet man, a very simple guy.
Mm.
He died in 1943 when I was in the Navy. He had
Wow.
colon cancer.
Yeah. He wasn't that old, right?
No, 63.
That's pretty young. That's my
Yeah,
age now. Wow.
And there was Johnny, who's the oldest, and May, Aunt Mary. Do you remember her? Your Aunt May
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
on Laura Street.
Yep. Yep.
Married,
And Barney.
She
Yep.
married to Barney McDonald.
Yep. Yep.
And then came Catherine Helen in 1909. She was a little girl who died when she was 8 or 9 months old, I guess. And then the next one was your mother in 1911.
Right, Goggy did mention a baby dying of scarlet fever or one of those
something like that.
smallpox. I don't know, something of that age, of that time.
Yeah. And she was buried in St. Lawrence Cemetery, and that's where my mother and father are both buried, and your mother and father are both buried in the back of them.
Yeah, I visit them every time I go.
So that's a sort of family plot.
Yeah.
Charlie was born in 1914, and I was born in 1917, so I was the youngest of the family.
Yeah. Something.
But my mother was quite active in the Irish movement to free Ireland.
I heard, yeah.
We always had a lot of Irish people coming and going in the house, and
really?
we'd go to dances and affairs. They would have to raise money to send to Ireland. And she was good to her cousins. At those days, families would bring over their cousins, nephews, and nieces and put them up for a while until they got a job and got their own place. So she brought over, put up about 5 or 6 of her nieces and nephews. The first couple were 1922, I think. I remember I was only 5 years old. And that was my Uncle Bill Ferguson. And his sister Lena. You don't remember them, I guess, too much.
No.
Not when you were 5 years old.
Anyhow,
I've heard the name Ferguson. I know that.
Yeah.
Right.
They had Bill married a girl named Agnes Whalen, and they had about 2 kids, I think, 2 boys. They're both still living, as far as I know. There was Bill Jr. plus Raymond. Oh yeah, they had a girl too, Patricia. She went away to become a nun, but I don't think she ever became a nun. She didn't last. Anything else?
Yeah, actually, what led me to this was I did some research on Allingtown, about the Allings, and traced them all the way back to Roger Alling. And I found that in 1940, one of the last Allings that lived there in Allingtown was Fred Alling, and he was on the Planning Commission. He had his name was on a map from 1940, I believe, and that was when they were developing some of the streets in Allingtown, like up on the hill there,
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you ever knew any of the Allings.
No, I didn't. There was none around when I moved up there, I don't think.
Yeah, they used to be in a house on 170 Orange Avenue, which was right on the corner of Orlando Street, I believe. I think the house may still be there. It's a big thing, set a little bit back.
Who lived
or
there?
it's where the Fred Alling and William Gilbert, who actually married Caroline Alling. A lot of them were, intermarried. There were a lot of them all over different names. But for a good couple of 100 years, there were Allings that lived in that whole area, different ones, brothers and sisters marrying this person or that. And the Gilbert, William Gilbert, I think used to have a big house across the street that's no longer there. It was had a square top, a cupola.
Across the street from where?
From, say, Front Avenue, somewhere across the street. I seem to remember it from way back. I think Chris said that Galka, the dentist, used to be in there until he moved to that brick
Galka,
building.
I remember him.
Yeah. I was just wondering if you knew any of the Allings,
No, I didn't know much about Allentown.
Although you lived in Allentown, didn't you?
Yeah.
You lived in that town.
Yeah, Allentown was a section of West Haven. Really.
It was a village.
It was like I don't know, a part of West Haven. It wasn't New Haven or anything. It was West Haven.
North End was the north part.
And it was mostly Italian in Allentown. A lot of Italians lived there. They're all nice people. I knew quite a few of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
You were part of that Allingtown Association.
Yes, a guy named Al Fort and I actually formed the association to...
I correspond with his daughter, Valerie, on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was just mentioning something about how the Oak Street connector used to go right up to Forest Road, right next to St. Lawrence Cemetery. Now it's gone and it's part of the cemetery. Used to be a bridge across that, what was that, West River? Do you remember that?
No, the Oak Street connector ended, as far as I know, at the boulevard.
Right. Well, in a 1926 map, it actually went across. They had a bridge across all that swampland, and it actually connected up to Forest Road. But of course now it's short, and the rest of it is now taken over by the cemetery.
That was proposed, but it never
Is
came
that
into
it?
be.
Yeah.
They never did it.
They never
They
finished
stopped at the boulevard.
Ah.
So when you took the Oak Street connector, you got up the boulevard, you went into the Haven that way, and if you took a left, you went to West Haven.
Right.
or over to Congress Avenue
Right.
and over the bridge to West Haven.
Right.
Yeah.
That's funny. I was walking around Harris recently, and I ran across an office with a nameplate, and her name was Flood.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'd never seen another Flood anywhere.
Yeah.
So I asked her, I said, "Do you have any relatives in New Haven?" She really couldn't tell me. She says, "We really don't get into our family history much." I said, "Well, I know there was another Flood family, not related, but named Flood, that came over to New Haven in the early 1900s.
Well, I had
That could be them, could be connected."
my godmother was Mrs. Flood. She lived on Nickel Street,
Hmm. Never
and
heard of her.
she was a widow and had a couple of children. How she became my godmother, I don't know. But her name was Flood.
No relation to
No
Catherine.
relation to my mother, no.
Probably that other Flood family.
Uh,
How about that?
It's funny. Poor Mrs. Flood, during the war, I was away over in the Pacific. She sent me a carton of cigarettes. And I could get them for 5 cents a carton. And those cigarettes were all
Yeah, she didn't
weazened
know.
up
Yeah.
and wet and everything else from traveling all those thousands of miles. I said, poor Mrs. Flood, she thought I could use some cigarettes.
Yeah.
But she was a nice woman. I kind of remember her being very, very kind.
Did you ever go to Ireland? I know Johnny did, but did you?
No, I never went there. Charlie and Johnny went.
I'm thinking when we're retired, I'd like to go there.
Yeah, you have cousins there.
I've heard everyone
Second,
that's
third.
gone there has liked it. They like the people. It's a small country. I thought about going up to Catherine's old village.
Yeah.
You can look it up on the internet. I mean, it's a nice little town with a stone bridge over a canal, and
Oh,
it's not far from a Tai Chi friend of mine who was in the next county over. I contacted this guy through the internet. He saw an article that I had written, and he liked it, and so now we're connected. He
that was
studies the same
Ballamore.
Ballinamore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in Leitrim County, which is
County
next to
Leitrim.
Northern Ireland. He's in Sligo, which is just the next
Sligo,
county west.
Yeah. Oh,
So, and it's not a big country. I figured, Sue and I could go there and rent a car, maybe stay in a cottage, a bed and breakfast, and go visit these places and maybe
Yeah, that'd
visit
be
her
nice.
family, because her family's from there too.
that'd be nice.
It would be, yeah. Something to
Whether
think
my
about.
whether my mother's old homestead is still there or not. The house she was born in, they turned into a barn.
Really?
My brother Johnny told me this after he got back.
Wow.
That was turned into a barn, but because they had built a bigger house up the hill from where that was.
Wow. Do you
but
remember
those-
what?
Those
what's-
would be my first cousins.
It'd be
but-
nice to look them up.
Yeah. Fergusons. Start with the Fergusons. That's
Mm.
the Floods. I don't know if I had any relatives from the Floods. My grandfather was John Flood, and as far as I know, my mother was his only daughter.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
But I think her mother got married the second time, so she had a half sister in Providence.
Right.
That's why she came to Providence when she
Ah,
was.
I didn't know that either.
She was a half sister.
And what was her?
Creamer,
Kramer?
yeah.
Creamer? How
Just
was it?
like a creamery.
Oh,
Instead of,
okay.
you call it Creamer.
Yeah, with a C.
Creamer instead of CRA.
Ah,
Creamer.
nice.
Of course, they were gone a long time ago.
Right.
So Gocky's name was Catherine. I never heard that.
Catherine,
Catherine Flood, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Elizabeth, right? Catherine Elizabeth?
No, you got me. I think so. I
I
don't
think
know.
it was, yeah. Yeah. Catherine. I was like Elizabeth. When we were having kids, if we had a girl, we were going to call her that. Hmm. Yeah.
Catherine.
Yeah. Yeah, see, that's a couple of things I didn't know. She was the only child, and she had a half-sister named, last name of Kramer. And
Creamer.
Kramer, yeah. Something.
But I didn't know her name was Catherine.
Yeah. Yeah, we always called her Goggy, which
Yeah.
came from Gaga,
Right.
which is, I think, what Jimmy's way of saying grandma when he was a kid. Was it
No, that
Jimmy?
was Bernie, the boy that died.
Oh, wow.
Your Aunt May's first child was Bernard. He
Oh,
was born in 1930,
oh,
and he's the one that started calling her Gaga
oh.
because they would say Grandpa, and
Hmm.
he'd say Gaga.
Huh.
So it picked up that the kids started calling her Gaga, so we all called her Gaga. And then some of them called her Gagi.
Right.
Gagi.
Yeah. Chris told me when he was, when I was going to school and he was taking walks with Goggy and she would sing him Irish songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was quite a singer, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember when I was a kid, little kid, she was always singing around the house. She'd sing me songs all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.